Hey folks, what do we have here? It's a bag of toys. I went to a local toy show yesterday and I want to take you through my haul. I got a lot of good stuff. They're in three categories and they're going to go in this order. So, first, it's part spots, broken toys that I think I can use for future projects that you might even see in a video. Then there are a couple of gifts, those are quick. And then there's stuff for me, stuff for the collection, some really special things that I found. And I am saving the best for last. So, if you can't wait, you're welcome to go ahead and jump ahead, see what those are, and then come back to me. Or go along for the ride with me. Let's get right into the toys. And first up among the part spots is Mirage. So this is a G1 Mirage, and it was a great vendor. She was called the Crazy Toy Lady, and they had this bin called the Toy Graveyard. It was all kinds of mixed toys. And that's one of the fun things about toy shows too, is just rummaging through the bins. A lot of vendors have the nice stuff out on the table, but then under the skirt below the table, there are bins of just random toys. And I love to rummage through those. And this thing was awesome. It had a lot of different kinds of toys, right? So you had to search for the Transformers, but I found all these G1 Transformers. And I probably got 10 or 12, sort of useful pieces for $5. $5. I also did a lot of trading while I was at this show, so I can't tell you for sure how much I spent on each piece because they were often a cash plus trade. There were even things that I picked up at the show, and then at a vendor later on down the line, I would trade that to them, for the next thing that I was trying to pick up. So it's turned yellow, right? But a lot of that can be addressed, through the peroxide whitening. Got some tires here that I can make use of, but probably the most important thing is this upper shell. This is pretty valuable to me, especially if I can turn it blue again, because these little clips are often broken. And back in the old days when these were still pliable, you could stick a screwdriver in there and kind of pry them up to get the chest off. You really can't do that anymore. They'll just snap right off. So my new technique is I press down on the metal part here and actually press against the metal to try to nudge it out from underneath the clip, because you don't want to flex the clip. The metal's pretty flexible, so that'll survive. We got a Mirage. Next up, we've got a Skywarp. A pretty decent Skywarp shell. This is one of those things that shows up in your parts bin. There are all these wingless jets. But the good stuff here is that we've got at least one tail wing. Those are valuable. People are missing them. The sticker's pretty messed up. But to get this for, roughly 50 cents, I'll take it. The tail wing's useful. I can get that out of there pretty easily. It just slips straight out and use it for a restoration. And then you've got the canopy as well for the little, where the Diaclone driver would have sat. It's too bad we're missing the nose cone, but this is a good opportunity to see what's underneath the nose cone. This kind of mushroom peg is how the nose cone stays on. So if you're ever trying to take a nose cone off or put one on, the way I learned to do it was from a He-Man repair, where they just dip it in boiling water, and that soft rubber kind of just softens enough that you can pull it off without tearing it. And then as it cools down, it firms back up. So there's a Skywarp. Next up, we've got a G1 Shrapnel. It's okay. It's okay. Let's see. Okay, good. The door opens and it's not super loose. Some of these just like flop down. Obviously his pincer thingies are broken off. This would be a good candidate for a restoration. I think it's just a part swap situation, right? If we just get a new arm, get the new pincer things, you'd have yourself a decent looking shrapnel. Okay, next up, we've got a Constructicon Hook. We just talked about him in one of the videos. And as usual, Hook has his broken leg. And if you didn't see the video about this, I'll just, revisit it right now. When you first try to, it's stuck. Oh, okay. So when you transform the leg, you have to slide it out, right? You have to slide it out, right? But when you transform it back to vehicle mode, you have to slide it back in, and then it'll seat. And unfortunately, these angles here, right? These angles here, there's really no angle there. You really need that to be a much sharper angle for the transformation to just naturally guide it out. It's kind of like what's happening here, right? When you try to convert it to car mode, this is supposed to guide, the foot back to the middle, to the medial direction, but I don't know, it's just not very effective. And definitely when you're stretching it out into the bot mode, it's just not effective at all. I mean, that's not horizontal, but it's not really much of an angle either. So that's why they always break. They always break. But nice bot. You know, we're missing the hook as usual, super common. But the center piece is pretty good. Sometimes this is missing. It's die cast, so it doesn't break, but sometimes it's missing. So we've got these screws. We can make use of those. All right. Now we've got another Constructicon. And this is the back end of, what's his name? Long haul, right. So it doesn't look like anything's broken. Oh, actually, yeah, it doesn't look like anything's broken, actually. It's, you know, the chrome's worn a little bit. Sometimes these wheels are actually broken off, so you'll see a long haul that's just missing a wheel, and, you know, to replace a leg is a little bit of trouble because this pin has to come out. That's not trivial to do that. It can be done, though. I've done it. And the other thing that's a little weird is there are so many molds for the Constructicons, even during G1, that sometimes you put a new leg on there and it doesn't match the old leg. Like, things just are slightly off, just a fraction of a millimeter off. If you've tried it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that can be pretty frustrating, but, you know, it's a small enough difference that depending on your purposes, it might be okay. Yeah, so long haul. Good to have some intact parts for Constructicons. One last Constructicon piece. This is the waist piece for Devastator. Yeah, right. So this part goes up into long haul, and then you've got a spot for Mixmaster and Scrapper. It looks like this is broken off, so not sure what I'm going to be able to do with this. But these things float around all over the place, so they're not really very hard to find or replace. But, you know, we'll hang on to it. It might come in handy one day. Maybe we get one that's missing one of these little gun thingies. I'm not even sure what to call those. I guess they're guns, but I never really thought of them as guns. They're just part of the architecture of this waist piece. Let's see. We've got a red alert. So he is messed up in all the classic ways. His doors are completely missing. Roof is missing. But he's got at least one spoiler is still intact. He's got the typical yellowing. This is really common. I mean, I'm not worried about that. I can whiten the yellow pieces up really well. And he responds well to it. The rest of him looks pretty decent. He's got a good arm that we can use. These tires are really nice, so I'm happy about that. The wheels themselves are really nice, shiny chrome. So it's kind of a mystery, you know, how cars like this have pieces that survive like practically mint, and then the rest of it is just trashed. Who knows? They all have a history kind of tattooed onto themselves. So red alert, yeah, I'm definitely going to be able to make use of this guy. And then I got one more in the parts category, and I don't know what this is. So I need your help because I haven't researched it. I'm sure a little bit of a search effort could probably resolve it for me, but it was just in that broken parts bin. And this is a super heavy die cast bottom half of a robot. So there's some, I guess, legs are coming out of it, or what is this? I don't know what it is, but it's reminding me of maybe like the Godaiken line. Seems to have toes. It seems to have a place to fire some missiles. So I'm sure one of you out there who knows non-transformers better than me has already pegged what this thing is. And if you can tell me, I'd appreciate it, because I don't know. But I could just tell by like the die cast, like kind of how it reminded me of some of the Godaiken toys I do know about. Some of them I have, like Bioman and Avalos, God Sigma, obviously Go Lion, Voltron. Yeah, I can't remember all of them, but they all have this kind of feel, you know, this like really, really heavy die-cast feel that's different than what you feel in G1 Transformers. Like, Transformers kind of have almost a symbolic presence of die-cast. It'll be like one piece that's die-cast, but the rest of it's all plastic. This thing, it's more like, it feels like it's all die-cast and there's a little bit of symbolic plastic. It's like just from a different era. So I don't know if this is going to be a project for me, but once I know what it is, I'll try to get it into the hands of someone who would actually value it and be able to use it for a restoration or maybe restore it. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. And next up is a gift. This is for one of my nieces. So I have two nieces that have birthdays coming up. They're going to be 2 and 5, if I've got that right. And their birthdays are just coincidentally within about 10 days of each other. So I thought while I was at the show, I could pick up something for them. And the same crazy toy lady that gave me all those parts bots, or sold me those parts bots, recommended this. I was looking for something that the younger one wouldn't swallow, and perfect age for plushies. And it's never too young to be introduced to Star Wars, right? Hopefully, no disagreement there. And this one caught my eye because of the lightsaber. Thought that was kind of cool. That's embroidered in there, and then just the general character. Like, I didn't realize this was Luke Skywalker at first. She had to tell me that because of the way they did the hair. It's kind of, it kind of looks like a bob. Is that what that's called? And I thought it was a girl Jedi. I thought it was some girl Jedi, and then I would look up the character later, but it turns out to be Luke. But still, I think it's cute, and the kiddo ought to enjoy it. And then another gift is this My Little Pony. This is for the 5-year-old niece, and it's not a vintage one from the 80s, but it's from 2005. So relative to a 5-year-old, that is pretty vintage. And I thought it would be fun. I have this like vague memory that her mom at one time had mentioned My Little Pony. I could be inventing that in my mind, but anyway, I saw this. I thought it was cool because of the tinsel. It comes from a line called Shimmer Ponies. And my favorite part was that the name of this toy or the character is Flippity Flop. And so on her hip, they stamped a pair of flip flops. All right, now we're on to stuff for me. And we'll get to robots in a second, but I wanted to show you these MicroMachines that I picked up. Several videos back, I did this MicroMachines thing where I took my own childhood MicroMachines, took real photos of them, and then redecorated them as G1 Transformers. That was really fun for me, and I want to do some more. I'm not really a MicroMachines collector other than just that bag of toys from my childhood, but I picked up some more. This was actually a vendor that I had bought from before, and I picked up a few other things from him during this trip. And these MicroMachines he kind of threw in as part of the trade because there were a couple pieces that were interesting to me that I didn't have already. One you might have seen already, or you might have picked out of the collage already, and it's this guy who I think could make an interesting kind of Bumblebee. He's like this dune buggy Volkswagen Beetle. So that would be fun. And then the other one, there are a few in here. Some of them I already kind of had. Like, I'm not sure what I would do with that, but this one, this Jeep, could be, clearly could be a good hound, but maybe it could be a swindle, right, from the Combaticons. So I don't know enough about the history of these, like why he has this trailer hook on the back, but maybe I'll look it up, and perhaps you will see him in a future video. All right, and we're back to G1 Transformers. This was a really cool vendor who actually took one of my toys in trade. So I always come to these things with a backpack of extra toys. Some of these vendors are just, they're flippers or they're representing a brick and mortar store. And some of them are just people like collectors who are trying to unload. They cleaned out their basement or their mom's basement and they're just trying to get rid of stuff. But they also like stuff, as long as they can thin out the herd, there may be things that they don't have that they want. And sometimes I have what they want. So it's really fun to meet people that way and kind of talk shop. So I brought that Transformers retro sea spray that you might have seen in an earlier video when I did this cold transform. It was kind of fun. Towards the end, I warmed up to it, but it was pretty tough for me to get through that transformation. And I realized that just, it just isn't what I do, right? It just wasn't for me. I'm a committed vintage G1 guy. There's just not enough room for me to have all this other stuff. So I offered it up to him. And the cool part was he looked at it and said, I'm going to keep this for my collection. I offered it in trade and he wasn't worried about what he could resell it for. He just said, oh, I'm going to add this to my collection. I have a couple of these. So that made me super happy. I thought that was terrific. So we, came to a mutually agreeable deal on several pieces, not just that one. But I'm happy that retro sea spray is going to a good home. And one of the pieces I got from him was this G1 Vortex. And he's missing his propeller. He always is, but I'll find another propeller eventually. But the good thing about him is his his legs and arms aren't broken. So this plastic is super brittle, and especially the arms. Like, what people forget as collectors, or what kids forget or never knew, is to transform his arms, you don't just split them. That's why they always break. You have to pull them out first. See if I can do that without breaking it right now. Afraid I will. It's like super tight. See if I can do one arm at a time. There it is. All right, at least there's one. I'm not gonna force it, because sometimes these just get so tight from age and not being transformed. They're like kind of caked with dust. Or maybe even the plastic is sort of migrating and melding a little bit. Sometimes if they're super tight, I'll actually disassemble them first, clean off the joints, and then put them back together. But if you see this kind of oval track in the arm, it's very important that you extend it and then try to, bring down the arm. You don't do that, you're going to have a broken vortex like everybody does. So this one I think can become a nice toy. Once I clean it up, loosen it up, find a propeller. And the head looks like it's intact. Yeah, it's good. Not the head, the attachment point there. Rear propeller is good. So yeah, not bad. Let's keep going. Picked up a pipes. I don't need a pipes. I have a couple of pipes already. One of my trading buddies at some point recently told me he needed a pipes. So, I grabbed it just in case he does want it. But if not, I don't mind having extras. Good pipes. He's a little dirty. I'll clean him up. Just for fun. I'm going to transform him and do a terrible job of it too. So there we go. Cool little toy. I love that he's basically a backwards huffer. And it's Fizzle. This is, I believe, a 1988 character, and he's a Sparkabot. That's what it's called. And he's supposed to fire sparks out the back here. I haven't tested it thoroughly. I can't get it going fast enough with my thumb to get the sparks going here. But maybe that'll be it might just be worn off. There may be no chance. I'll see. I actually have a Fizzle in my collection that's broken. It has a missing tail light or headlight, and it also had a broken rear tire or wheel that I glued back on. So it looked pretty good, and it's sitting there on the shelf. But somehow in my memory banks, when I saw this Fizzle, it just popped up, and I remembered, oh yeah, I kind of need a Fizzle that's not broken. So this one appears to be not broken. It's blue plastic, which terrifies me, as you know. So I'm not going to try to yank this open. It's feeling pretty tight there. Well, actually, it's going okay. All right, I eat my words. I did open him up. I'm golly. Oh, come on, don't break. Oh, I hate that sound. That's not a good sound, but it didn't break. Didn't break, but the squeak of stiff, brittle plastic is like, what is it? Nails on a chalkboard to me. But yeah, good looking Fizzle. So that's going to go in the collection, and it's going to be an upgrade to the one I have. And the one I have, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll sell it or something. All right, let's keep going. Now we're getting into some special stuff. All right, we're in the home stretch, and this is something I needed for my collection. So it's a G1 Springer, and I do have a G1 Springer. This one is clearly missing his accessories, right? He's got a sword that is the helicopter blades. There's another little gun that goes on the side. The special thing about this one is that he is the metal chest variant. And if you cringe whenever I touch these painted pieces with my screwdriver, I'm sorry, because right now you're about to cringe, but I'm going to do it. Don't worry, I'm not going to scratch it. But the way you can usually tell these old painted metal pieces is just because of the paint chipping. You don't see that on the plastic. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to tell just on a picture or video. But this is the metal chest Springer, and there was a variant, right? So they started out with this metal chest, and then they switched them to a plastic chest. And I have a really nice plastic chest Springer, but I never had one with a metal chest. So when I saw this, I knew I had to have it, and I worked a trade. So let's see, I traded this. No, I'm sorry, I traded for this a G1 Wheeljack, the first variant that has those center lock wheels. And I traded some other G1s that I had picked up from one of the other vendors earlier in the afternoon. I think it was a Warpath, a Bone Crusher, something else. It's kind of foggy. It was a whirlwind, and it was a lot of fun. I hope you can tell that I I really enjoy it, and I think the vendors enjoy it too. Um, it wasn't one for one. There was a lot of other aspects of the deal, because I'll show you one more of those aspects that I'm hoping you'll really enjoy. But yeah, I'm super happy with this piece. It was missing from the collection. I'll find a propeller, find a propeller. But there's a lot of this metal variant thing. Um, Kind of going off the cuff, so I'm having a trouble remembering exactly which of the combiners. There were a lot of combiners that went from this metal chest to plastic. Um, Predacons, yeah, the Predaking, right? Predaking. There was a lot of that. They went from metal to plastic. Um, Not just then. I think maybe not just them. The Combaticons did that as well. Who else? Yeah, it's just harder for me to extract this stuff from my memory banks like it used to be. But I'll do a quick search on the internet, or maybe you all can refresh me. But that's a pretty common thing that they started out metal and then switched to plastic. But that's a nice Springer. I'm happy about that. Right. And then the last thing, I told you I'd save the best for last. So in my opinion, this is the best. So what we've got here are some Diaclone pilots. And I've never had any of these, all right, other than reissues. So these are the pre-Transformers pilots that would go into the pre-Transformers car robots. And, that's why they had cockpits. That's why they had those little doors that would open up. Hopefully you can see this. This is the red Diaclone pilot. And I found this chart, which I'll show you online. It's really helpful for showing all the different types of Diaclone drivers. This is just part of the information they had on this specific type, but there are several different types of Diaclone driver. This one I think was called Type 3, and the different colors were paired with different pre-Transformers car robots and Dino Robos. So, and probably something else too. It's just not my expertise, right? I'm a G1 Transformers guy, but I don't really collect Diaclones. So these are the first time that I've ever had these. I think I may have touched them at a toy show before, but didn't buy them because they're pretty pricey. Again, when I saw these, I had to try to work a deal, and because of the whole trade thing, I was able to make it a little bit less painful. But you see, they've got these magnets on the feet. Sometimes those break off and are missing, but they appear to be here. And this one, the red one, I think I'm not looking at that chart right now like you are, but I think it was like Slag and Thundercracker, maybe Jazz. This red one came with. And I have a Thundercracker in my personal display that's displayed in jet mode. So I think I'm going to put this guy in my Thundercracker. I think that'll be fun. Let me take a look at the yellow one now. Yeah, so here's the yellow one. And this one, I believe, came with Sunstreaker, maybe Trax, and another Dinobot. Maybe it was Swoop. But again, I'm not looking at that chart right at this moment. But um, that ought to make it more clear. I love it, man. This is cool. So I think it'll go in my Sunstreaker. That's what's going to do. So that's what I'm going to do. So all my Autobot cars, what I do is I display them in twos, basically. So one in robot mode, one in car mode. And the inspiration of that is just the way they did the catalogs, so I'm kind of replicating the catalogs in that way. So I do have a Sunstreaker in car mode, and I'll have him sit within it. I think that'll be a really nice, a little Easter egg for me to know about. No one will notice it as they walk by. Not that anyone looks at my collection other than me, but I'm going to really enjoy that. So that's the haul from the toy show. A few special things that I'm looking forward to bringing into the collection, like those Diaclone drivers and the metal chested Springer, but lots of great parts and pieces that I can use for future projects, a couple of gifts for the kiddos. And most importantly, I enjoy walking around the show floor looking for treasures and talking to the vendors. Everybody's so kind and, loves to talk shop about toys and the history of toys. Um, I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride with me. Say hi in the comments. Let me know what you thought. And as always, I hope you found this information useful, and we'll see you next time.